What's going on, everybody? Big Dog Brett. Welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share. So much to get started talking about. Really appreciate you guys being here. Right off in the gate, how's it going, Colby? You are correct on the first part, incorrect on the second part, and not much is the answer to the third part. Jay Shapes, what's going on, sir? Hit 150 balls at the batting cage Monday. Just getting over the soreness. Man said he's getting ready already. I hadn't swung a bat not once. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. For those of you who don't know, we're doing a get together with some YouTube people, going to get together and hit a few softballs around, talk a little smack, and have a little bit of fun. So first things first, I really appreciate all you guys being here. We're getting pretty close to 5,600. We've got about a month and some change, about a month and 2 weeks before college football season really starts off. So we're starting to ramp things back up. Went ahead and put out a video earlier today. Hope you guys enjoyed that video talking about Stetson Bennett. Tonight, we should be having a special guest. Let me check something real quick. Says he's here. So let's do this. I'm going to go ahead. What's going on, Bulldog CW? I'm going to go ahead and post this in the chat for one of our wondrous friends to join. Zero missing. What is that? What is zero missing? I don't know. We got a few of you guys in here. If you would, guys, go ahead and do a favor for me and hit the thumbs up button. Let's go ahead and try to get that number pumped up as we can. I got to start getting worked back into the YouTube algorithm. So yeah. Mr. Keith Carr, how you doing, sir? Welcome back to the show. Glad to see you here, one of our favorites. Oh, my other show, yeah. So we're going to be doing more with that show too. Don't worry. Just been super busy. Was actually going to do the show last night. Wasn't able to do the show last night because I was in the middle of installing some stone backsplash in our kitchen. So yeah, that was It's been busy, and I still got another countertop to install, more stone backsplash to install, a sink to install, 2 doors to fix, correct, repair, replace as far under the sink doors, and then I have to change the plumbing out. And yeah, so I got quite a bit ahead of me, but when I have the time, I'm going to start working on it as well. What's going on, Salty Dog? Glad to see you here, sir. Today we're going to be talking about just kind of the conference shakeups, what's really going on, the UGA versus the where's my banners look all weird? Let me get rid of that. There we go. I think this is, there we go. So the we're going to be talking about the Oregon show coming, the Oregon Showdown, more like the beatdown. That's going to be coming up pretty soon. What's going on, RJ all day? How you doing, sir? Welcome back to the channel. Appreciate you guys joining us here on a Thursday night. We're going to talk about a lot of things. So just got a brand new microphone, as you guys can see. Here it is. For the longest time, I was using this. So you guys, if you've noticed, there's a little bit of a change. Hopefully you guys like the sound quality. Spent a couple of hours making sure I had the sound right on this thing. It's not as easy as I had hoped. But yeah. Cade, appreciate the super chat, sir. He said, what odds would you give Oregon to beat Georgia week 1? That's a pretty cool avatar. I would probably say maybe a 10% chance at best. There's a lot to get into, and we're going to get into it. I'm waiting for Keith to join the stream here. Once he joins the stream, we'll really kind of get into it. So what's going on, Ballard? How you doing, sir? There's so much to get into. So here we are. Welcome back there, Mr. Keith. How you doing, sir?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Digging the mustache, my man. That's good.
Yeah.
So as you can see here, Cade is already jumping on top of it here. You feel pretty comfortable talking about the Oregon game?
Yeah. I mean, I'm still trying to get back into the college football swing, the news, and keep going with baseball. So
yeah, I'm hoping to go to a Braves game here pretty soon. I heard you knew a guy.
Yeah, let me know, man.
All right, so for those of you who are just now joining the channel, really appreciate you guys being here. But the main reason that we're starting this show is because we're going to get into more and more stuff as we go along. We're going to talk. Your camera's off, but I don't know if your mic's muted.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Sound like a fist fight.
Had to close the door back there. Sorry about that.
Gotcha. So
professionalism, you know.
Yeah. So how does the mic sound? Do you like the mic?
Yeah, it sounds great, man.
Okay, good. Because I was really kind of worried about that. It looks good. It looks good. But I didn't know if it was going to sound good. So I spent a lot of time today working on that. But anyway, so in what's coming up is on September the 3rd, I believe it is. Let me double check. Yep, September the 3rd. Georgia is going to be playing Oregon on a neutral site. Somehow we're going to call this neutral, I guess, against Oregon in Atlanta at 3:30 p.m. on ABC. So it looks like we will have to deal with Gary Danielson's a little bit, but he's more of an SEC homer, so he's been kind of leaning more towards Georgia here lately. But I wanted to go ahead and get your initial thoughts on the Georgia-Oregon game and the effect of the neutral site.
I mean, I don't think the neutral site is going to make much of a difference. You know, I mean, I think everybody's hoping that this is, you know, I mean, I know all the Georgia fans are hoping this is a blowout, but I think, you know, nationally, everybody's hoping this is a good game. It's probably one of the better games to start off week 1. You know, a lot of teams like to start with nobodies right off the rip, and you know, we scheduled this. I remember when they scheduled the home and home with Oregon. It seems like it was 10 years ago when that deal was signed. So I can't remember when that exactly was made. And it seems like Oregon was, you know, much better team when that deal was made. So I think they were hoping this was a little bit more of a marquee matchup than it's probably going to end up being. But you know, first game of the year, always sloppy. Always, there's always some intangibles that happens in these type of games that you can't really predict. So, and both teams are gonna have to deal with that. But I think Georgia's gonna come out on all cylinders. I just think they're too deep. The same thing that we had last year. I think they're going to be able to sub in the third and fourth quarter and sub in guys that would be starting for most other colleges across the country. And the same thing that happened last year. You just can't keep up with them depth wise. So I don't think Georgia has anybody on their schedule that's going to be able to keep up with them depth wise. So yeah, I predict this to be a 2-3 score win.
Yeah, I have to agree with most of that. And the reason that I want to change gears here just a little bit is because I feel like the offense came out maybe a little bit sloppy. Again, playing with a hurt quarterback last year, but I feel like the defense started off pretty much on point and stayed on point. So I think that Georgia is going to be able to do a pretty good job in that.
I definitely think offenses is where you see that, defenses
right.
generally is, it's like they say in baseball, speed doesn't slow up in football, that we had speed on defense, and that
right.
It's very, I think defenses come out a little bit more disciplined right off the rip than offenses, it's a little bit more, a little bit more complex, I guess, on offense to try to get everything right, especially when you're running freshmen out there. Of course, I don't think we're going to be running too many freshmen out there this year, but we did last year. So,
so I want to address RJ's comment. He says, "BDB, I know you said it's a 10% chance. You may need to add another 10 to 15%. Don't really know what offense they will run." Well, here's the way I look at that. So, the offensive coordinator for Oregon, does anybody know their name? I looked this up the other day. It's Kenny Dillingham. So Kenny Dillingham, let me see if I can find it real quick. Trying to find his stat sheet here. Here it is. So here's what you need to know about Kenny Dillingham and whether or not you think he's any good. Okay. 2019, he was the offensive coordinator for Auburn. And then he was the offensive coordinator for Florida State for 2020 and 2021. Does that scare you at all? Because it doesn't scare me. Now, keep in mind that their defensive coordinator, which is pretty much going to be Dan Lanning. Everybody thinks Dan Lanning is the guy who had the UGA's defense as number one in the country, as Dan Lanning did that. Dan Lanning did it. I hate to break the news to a lot of people, but Dan Lanning was just kind of there. That defense was Kirby Smart all day, every day, and Will Muschamp all day, every day. And there's a lot of fans out there that don't like Will Muschamp, but Will Muschamp is a really good defensive coach, historically. So you're taking a guy who's never been a head coach before, and he's coached basically under Kirby Smart, 2 years now? So he goes on and he's going to become a head coach. Compare that to Kirby Smart, who was the defensive coordinator for Alabama, who has multiple national championship rings on his hand, stepping into a Georgia team that was pretty decently geared coming in. And he still went 8-5 his first season. Is that right, Keith?
Yeah, I'm not sure. They went, but yeah, I think Oregon, I think they'll end up being, what they have been for the last few years. They'll be a decent team, but, I don't think Georgia's going to fall off as much as a lot of people are fearing they're going to.
Well, I could look at it this way. I could say the video I made earlier today really talked about how Stetson Bennett is way, way better than he's given credit for. Stetson Bennett was number 3 in the country last year in QBR rating. Stetson Bennett is the 13th best QBR rated quarterback ever at UGA. Excuse me, in the SEC, not UGA. He's like second in UGA, second or third at UGA. and he's 41st all time. And if you take away the fact that like Johnny Manziel has like 2 or 3 spots, Justin Fields got 2 spots, Tua's got like 3 spots, all those numbers collapse down. He's close to being in the top 25 quarterbacks QBR rating of all time. You don't get to be there by being a backup chump. And I think that that's what a lot of people think. I thought that for a while myself until I jumped into it. So
Yeah, I mean, he reminds me of, you know, he reminds me of the quarterbacks that you used to see come out of Alabama back in the beginning of Alabama's reign. You know, that
AJ
none
McCarron.
of them, none of them were really like, you know, world beaters or anything, but they got the ball to their playmakers, and that's really all they really needed to do. And then, you know, and then Alabama kind of bought into the, you know, into the new age spread offense, you know, read options, all that stuff. And they started recruiting quarterbacks, you know, 4 or 5 star quarterbacks, and you started seeing them have Heisman candidate quarterbacks. And then I think Kirby just kind of flipped the script. He went old school. He went back to what Alabama did originally. You know, he recruited speed and athleticism on defense, and that was able to stop and neutralize some of the teams that have invested so heavily in that type of offense. And then, you know, he installed an offense that, you know, I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think, you know, Kirby envisioned, you know, Stetson Bennett being the person to take him to the national championship. But so, I mean, we kind of looked up as a program to have somebody like Stetson that could step in after we had really put all our chips into JT Daniels' basket. So, I mean, we were fortunate in that, and that's what depth brings. I mean, that's what happens when you recruit and you don't burn bridges with people like Stetson when he did go away and he came back, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, and then we installed depth on offense. You had true freshmen coming in and not only contributing, I mean, they were major parts of the offense throughout the year, you know? I mean, our biggest offensive weapon was a true freshman. So, I mean, it really comes down to recruiting. And we put these guys on the field, and Stetson just did a good job. He was mature enough to get the ball to the guys that we needed to get the ball to, and he made the right decision to get it to the right person at the right time. So, I mean, he didn't really blow anybody away. He just didn't lose us games, you know.
So I want to. I think you're absolutely right, but I think
that gets you a big QBR rating if you get the ball to guys and let them run downfield and they score touchdowns and you don't turn the ball over and you scramble for first downs. I mean, those are all things that will definitely give you a good QBR rating, and it's good. It's things that will keep you on the field as a starting quarterback too. I mean, you know, making big runs on third down to get first downs, and I mean that's the reason Stetson Bennett was our quarterback. You know, because I mean, we needed somebody that when things broke down could just take off and take the ball in his own hands and make plays, and he did that.
You know? Absolutely. There's a couple of things I want to add to it though. So RJ says that I think either Stetson Bennett has either a slow start or a very sloppy second half. I don't disagree with the first part. I think he may come out a little bit slow, but I think that's any quarterback. I don't think that's just Stetson Bennett. But I doubt he has a sloppy second half. I think by then Todd Monken will have figured out everything he wants to do, whether it's swing passes, throwing it deep, or the run game. He'll have that figured out. I think the second half will look much smoother than the first half. Now, here I gotta rag on Jay just a little bit. Jay Shipe says it really helps having an elite at the other 21 or 22 positions. It does, but let me ask you a question. Do you think that Bryce Young wins the Heisman if he didn't have not just one, but both of the wide receivers that he had at Alabama last year? I think clearly not. I think those guys made some absolutely amazing catches. And you're right, having an elite wide receiver will make you look phenomenal. My question:
did he have an elite wide receiver last year? I mean, you know, I know I just got finished saying he had weapons, but I mean, I don't think that. I mean, outside of Pickens when he was there.
No. I'm talking about Young.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying you were comparing him to I mean, he was comparing them to, or saying that Stetson Bennett had elite people at all the other positions. I'm saying I don't think he did really, like, not a receiver.
Not a receiver position. I mean, you could argue Jermaine Burton, but here's the point that I was making is that
Bowers, I guess I'll give you
Bowers, but Bowers is not a wide receiver. Bowers is a tight end. But anyway, what I'm looking at is that Georgia doesn't specifically target 2 or 3 elite players. They specifically spread it around. It's very difficult to become a elite team with just 2 talented receivers. There's teams that do it. Alabama really likes to run tandem. It was Waddle and Ruggs for a long time, and then you had Devonta Smith and I mean multiple wide receivers on a team that are elite. Georgia really didn't have that last year. Our best wide receiver sat on the sideline. Hey, what's going on, DC Vlogs? Really appreciate you joining the channel, sir. Thank you for becoming a member and supporting the channel. That really helps us, especially in the off season. But it also gives me motivation to make more videos during the on season. Appreciate you being a member, sir. The interesting thing to me is that there's a lot of people that are talking about that Stetson Bennett isn't that good. But if you look at the talent that he had true freshman wide receiver. He had a true freshman tight end that he absolutely mollywopped people with, right? And so what was the best wide receiver we had? What, Adonai Mitchell, maybe?
Yeah, true freshman too.
Yeah, true freshman too. So when you're looking at the talent that's out there, there's a lot of talent that's going to continue to be at Georgia for the next couple of years. But the problem that you run into is that you can always have the argument of you got elite wide receivers can make a bad quarterback look good, and a good quarterback can make bad receivers look good. But you got to have both. Both have to be good to have consistency. And Stetson Bennett was pretty consistent. Otherwise, his QBR rating wouldn't be what it is. Keep in mind that in the Arkansas game, he had a total of like 7 yards in passing. He didn't play in 2 games, or he played in 1 game for like 1 pass and didn't play in another game at all. Hey, there's Vic too. How you doing, sir? Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, I think Stetson's numbers, if you really look at it like a per game average, I think he did. I think he did fine. You can't really knock him for total yardage when you really take into account how much he didn't play and how much we didn't have to pass. There were games where we ran the ball almost exclusively in the second half, particularly in the fourth quarter of most games.
Well, Arkansas for sure.
The Georgia program has just never been one of those teams that is going to throw for 4,000 yards when we're winning like that. You look at Kirby Smart and what Rick did when they got leads, they run the ball, and you see other teams, namely Oklahoma, teams like that, they're still chunking the ball. They're up by 40, they're still throwing the ball.
Yeah,
Georgia's just never been that way, and so you can go back to the Aaron Murray days where they put up lots of yardage, but those were games that we were in every minute of the game. We were having to. You think back to the Rick days, there weren't a lot of them where we were beating people by 40 every weekend,
right?
Or beating people by 35. We were struggling to win games that we should have been winning. So we were playing football down to the final minutes. In a lot of those games, it hasn't really been until the last few years with Kirby where we have just been on cruise control. We've blown out the teams that we were supposed to blow out, and so statistically, particularly passing yardage of a quarterback is just going to suffer in those situations. When you have a program like we do, we just feed the rock to these. We got like 3 or 4 different running backs that we just cycle in and just keep pounding the rock.
Georgia essentially gets whatever running back.
Kind of surprising that he ends up with, what do you end up with, like 20 something, like 2,000. I can't remember what Stetson's final yardage was, like 2,500 or something like that.
Yeah, 28.
Actually, kind of surprising that he ended up with that much if you really think about what the scores were in a lot of the games we played in.
So I want to address GJ here. who says, without that defense, it won't fly. Y'all lost your best receiver to Bama. So I'm going to give you a GJ. I'm not ragging on you. I just want to kind of clarify some things. So if we jump over and we look at our top receivers, which I'm gonna share my screen here, Keith. So
I don't think Burton was a top receiver, right? Like any time
no,
in Georgia.
he wasn't.
I mean, he was recruited as that, but I don't think he ever was.
So here's my screen. If you guys can see it, I'm gonna go to. If you look right here, you'll see that Brock Bowers had 56 receptions for 882 yards, 13 touchdowns. That's as many as nearly any three other receivers combined. Jermaine Burton had 26 receptions. There was 1, 2, 3, 4 people that had more receptions than he did. Now, he did have 497 yards, but when you look at Ladd McConkey being at 447, he was targeted more. He had 50 fewer yards. Look who we got right here, 426 yards, 5 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns. That's so you can see Georgia spreads the ball around. They're averaging 14 to 15 yards, pretty consistently. Rosamie Jackson.
I mean, at the risk of sounding like a homer, I guess, I try to stay as objective as I possibly can. But losing Jermaine Burton to Alabama, the loss of him for us and the gain of him to Alabama is like one of the most inconsequential things that I could even think of to say about this coming up football season. I don't think it's going to matter one bit to Georgia losing him, and I don't think it's going to matter one bit for Alabama gaining him. Both of the receivers that they played with last year are better than Burton on any given Saturday.
Correct. And Adonai Mitchell has nothing but room to grow.
Every receiver that you can think of going back, or every Alabama team that we've played in the last, I don't know, ever since we've been competing with them for SEC championship, has had a better receiver on their roster than Jermaine Burton.
Yeah.
You go back to Calvin Ridley. I mean, that's no slight on Jermaine Burton. That's really saying a lot about Alabama's prior receivers. They've had great receivers. So them having a great receiver on their roster, okay, cool. I mean, you had one last year. You had 2 last year. The year before last, you had 3 guys that are going to be playing in the NFL on your roster. I mean,
so let me throw another little interesting stat out here for everybody. Brock Bowers. So the guy that we lost, Jermaine Burton, goes to Alabama. Okay, I understand why he would do that. He doesn't want to have to sit there and get 26 receptions, which is basically 2 receptions a game. He wants to go somewhere where he's going to be highlighted. I completely understand that. But here's the other thing I want to point out to everybody in the stream. Brock Bowers, Adonai Mitchell, and Ladd McConkey all had similar or better numbers than Jermaine Burton. And all 3 of those guys, all 3 are freshmen or were freshmen.
With Jermaine Burton moving out of the way makes room for Eric Gilbert to catch footballs. No, I'm sorry. I'll pay for your bus ticket to Tuscaloosa.
Need me to help you pack that bag, sir?
Yeah.
Bus leaves at 6 sharp. Don't miss it now. So for me, I'm not, and this is, again, like you said earlier, this is going to sound like a homer statement, but when you've got, sir, you're making me question that whether you watch football or not. Let me put it to you this way. Nick Saban knew that we were going to be throwing it to Brock Bowers, Ladd McConkey, Adonai Mitchell, and James Cook. The second time he knew that's what we were going to do, and he couldn't stop it. So does Georgia lose some stuff on defense? Yes. But here's what I also know. If Georgia had the number 1 defense they probably have ever had, arguably. If Georgia even drops to, let's just say, a top 10 defense in the country, they're still extraordinarily dangerous. Georgia's offense is likely going to be a top 5, maybe 6 offense in the country. You couple that with the fact that Georgia has so much talent and so many people to throw to, and they're so deep, a lot of depth. they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. Ohio State's going to be much better this year. Alabama's going to be much better this year. But Georgia's not going to take this giant step back that everybody thinks they are. Georgia doesn't need to play shell games and shadow games to move the ball.
No, I don't think. I mean, making a statement like Georgia's only chance is blah, 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 blah is just, that's just so disconnected from what's going on. Georgia's offense and Georgia's defense is capable of lining up and playing nose-to-nose football and not having to trick anybody in the country. Hell, we just won a national championship. We didn't do any trickeration. We threw the ball to our guys and they caught it. We handed the ball to our guys and they ran it. You look at the plays from that game. That was just smash mouth football. It was just football. There wasn't any razzle dazzle. I don't expect them to do that this year either. They're going to get the ball to Brock Bowers. They're going to get the ball to A.D. Mitchell. They're going to get the ball, to Kendall Milton and McIntosh, and they're going to, and they may confuse people with these tight ends. Having these three tight ends is definitely an advantage. But how many times do you think they're going to run out there in three tight end sets and try to confuse anybody? They're probably not going to.
Well, I think Todd Monken is so talented and so experienced, and he really does get in there and pay attention to what his people can do and how they do it. And he utilizes the offense in a manner that best suits the offensive weapons he has. That's why you saw James Cook with so many receptions. Now, James Cook, nobody's going to argue that James Cook is a good or bad running back. James Cook had 113 carries. He averaged 6.4 yards a carry. 728 yards. The guy was an absolute monster. But James Cook also had 27 receptions with an average of 10 yards. Now, if you're looking at a traditional running back, you're not going to say, hey, can you catch the ball? But at Georgia does. Georgia wants to make sure you can catch. So they used James Cook. James Cook had 27 receptions versus his counterpart, Zamir White, only had 9. Now, Zamir White got the lion's share of the carries at 160, but he got less than a third of what James Cook did on receptions. That tells me that they're not just going to run a running back out there and throw the ball to any running back from that formation. Those throws and those passes to James Cook were specifically made for James Cook.
Yeah, I think the loss of James Cook is going to sting. That's the biggest question mark I have as far as offenses. Will these guys step up and be able to give us what the tandem of Zamir White and James Cook did last year? If you think back to that, I'll just always remember this, the A.D. Mitchell touchdown in the national championship game. That was James White. James Cook picking up that blitz. That was a free play on all sides, but he picked up that blitz. Those are things that you just, it's just hard to teach that awareness. He picked that guy up and depleted him. And if he doesn't do that, that's not a touchdown pass.
He absolutely blew that guy up. And because he blew that guy up, Stetson Bennett knew it was a free play, but he had time to make that pass. Without that, he doesn't make that pass.
Yeah. And I see, who is this? Yeah, boy, there's only 5 teams that seriously have a shot at A&M, Clemson. Yeah, I think I agree with that for the most part. I don't know if I'll throw A&M in there. But it's kind of interesting. It sounds like you're a Bama fan with that name, but kind of interesting that you would throw A&M in there. But
well,
unless it's with PTSD from last year, but I don't think A&M beats Alabama this year.
I do think that South Carolina has a better roster than they had last year, and I'm more concerned about.
They got Spencer Rattler, right?
They got Spencer Rattler. I'm more concerned about, and which that game right there in and of itself will put away the discussion about having elite wide receivers versus having an elite quarterback. South Carolina does not have elite wide receivers, so we're going to see what happens whenever they're tuned up with Georgia's cornerbacks. Go when you get an opportunity, go check out Georgia's cornerbacks and you tell me what you think. Georgia is now starting to develop a reputation for having the best DBs in the country. So We'll have to see what happens. One of the things I do want to bring up about the Oregon game is that I know that, and this is probably the bad part for Oregon. The Georgia offense, the Georgia football team is heavily trained for hot weather. And they really get out there and they make it a point to condition themselves for heat. And I've been all over the country, and the heat in the South is just a different kind of heat. It just is. And it's not uncommon to see teams come down from other places and get winded playing against Georgia. So I think that's going to play a factor. I think the average temperature in Oregon in September is like mid 70s to low 80s. I've seen it be 90 degrees, 95 degrees in September in Georgia. And those guys will be out there playing it. So I think that's going to be a big deal. Georgia has one of the easiest schedules in the SEC. Yes,
Yeah, probably.
but only because we're really good. If we were a crappy team, it would not be an easy schedule.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's no surprise that the East. I mean, you look and see what Florida's doing, what Tennessee's doing, what's not going. I mean, yeah, it will be a disappointment if Georgia doesn't go undefeated and play an SEC championship game. For sure. I wouldn't say that every year. I mean, but this year was our Western opponent's Mississippi State. So I mean, yeah, I would say that we have an easy schedule. I can't disagree with that. Although, and I want to say a dude that's name is Gray Man. I like the name.
Yeah,
it's a great book series. If that's what you're referencing, the Gray Man book. So.
Back-to-back toodles.
You're right. It doesn't. That's what I'm hoping for my Braves. They winning back-to-back titles is very rare in all sports. So.
I think there's something here we've got to address, and it's the Georgia has had this wet blanket, this cloud over their head, this invisible hump they just couldn't get over of beating Alabama. And I know as a Georgia fan, and having been a Georgia fan for as long as I can remember, there was just in the most recent years here, it was just seemed like no matter what we did, we just couldn't beat Alabama. I was like, we could do everything else, but we couldn't beat Alabama. And so there was that mental block. And whenever we lost in the SEC championship game, it was like, yep, here we go again. And I think breaking that proves to Georgia's faithful that it can be done. And I think hoping you can do something versus knowing you can do something is two totally different ball games. There's a lot of guys on that team that have national championship rings, and they know how hard they had to work to get there, and they're going to continue that same work ethic. Now, does that mean they're going to win a national title? No, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to win a national title, but it's not like LSU where it all just fell apart.
Yeah, and I'll go back and, building off of that, I don't know who I saw up here saying something about, after you win a championship, it's hard to be hungry for it a second year. And logically, I see where you're coming from with that. Like I said, being a big Braves fan, I was worried about that this year, especially with the way the Braves started being really slow, and they've kind of turned it on now. But the interesting thing about college football is you have a cycle of 2 to 4 years with these kids. So I mean, the guys that just won the national championship, 15 of those guys are gone. So I mean, more than that are gone. 15 of them just got drafted.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is a whole new team. It's not, these guys aren't going to be just happy they won a national championship. There's going to be some guys that didn't contribute to that. There's going to be some guys that weren't even on the team, and then a whole list of other guys that didn't get to hardly contribute to that. They're going to be, I think, more hungry at college football to win that. They want to show that, hey, I can do that too. This isn't like an NFL team or a baseball team that's largely the same roster trying to get motivated to win it again when they're the defending national champions or the defending, world champions or whatever. In college football and college sports is unique in that way, where every year it's pretty much a new roster, it really is a new campaign, And these guys, I mean, I think they're going to be more motivated than ever to win a national championship. Now,
Yeah, I think
it's very hard. It's hard every year to win it, and so the odds of winning it 2 times in a row are very slim. So it's going to require some work and all that stuff. But I don't think there's going to be any layover.
No, I can see the. Oh, we lost Keith. I'll get him back in. Don't worry. You go ahead and post that in the stream. I'm sure he'll jump back in. Saban retires at the end of 24. He might. So there's certainly opportunities for, and a lot of people may not agree with this, but I'm going to go ahead and point this out for you. It is 100% possible that Alabama does not make the playoffs this year. Now, people say, "Oh, you're just trash talking." Well, hear me out. So this is their schedule for 2022. They play Utah State. They'll win that game. They play Texas. They'll win that game. And they play a bunch of no-name teams, and then they play Texas A&M. Now, you could argue that Texas A&M beat them last year, might be able to beat them again. This is going to be a game to circle and watch because these guys are going to be absolutely furious with one another. There's been so much trash talking back and forth between these two. Arkansas is not going to be a slouch. Arkansas might be able to beat up Alabama a little bit. Texas A&M might be able to get them over the hump. And then I'm really, really curious what's going to happen with this Tennessee game. Tennessee is going to be a pretty good football team this year. Alabama should beat them, but after playing Arkansas and Texas A&M back-to-back and then playing Tennessee, I just don't know how likely that is to win all three. They should, but that's a rough spot. And you got LSU, which will be better. You got Brian Kelly down there. We don't know what that's going to do. Well, you got Mississippi State, and then you got LSU. Ole Miss has an opportunity here, maybe. They should win that game, but what are you going to do? If Alabama carries 1 L or even 2 L's, it's possible they won't get in. So if they get 1 L and then Georgia manages to beat them in the SEC championship game, they're out of the playoffs. So one of the things I wanted to bring up is how dynamically different the playoffs become if Alabama doesn't make it. What's up, Millis? So if Alabama doesn't make it, you're going to see Ohio State, most likely, and then you're going to see Georgia. You'll likely see an undefeated Clemson team. And then who's left? Maybe in Oklahoma.
Yeah, there's always one of those teams that kind of
shows up out of nowhere. Maybe a Cincinnati. But when you're looking at it that way, the way both Georgia and Alabama bodied their first round opponents, it's a pretty clear indication of how different football is in the SEC. USC, Texas. Those kids committed are paid. Yeah. Well, you can certainly say one thing to those kids, let's get out there and win it for the hometown. Yay. And then there's another thing is you better get out there and win. Now we're paying you money for this. You want that NIL money? You better get out there and play with this broke ankle. Yeah. All kids are getting paid in one shape, form, or fashion. Millis is saying Oklahoma no and Cincinnati no. You never know, man. Never know. I mean, look at the conferences they're in. Who else in that conference is going to win that conference?
Yeah, I don't know what's going to go on with the rest of the country, man. I don't even know what the conferences are going to look like.
A woeful gap.
I know that's probably going to change this year, but man.
So that is something I wanted to talk about a little bit. What is your thoughts of the musical chair version of the conferences that's going on right now?
I mean, a few years ago, I remember reading an article, and I can't remember where I read it at, that was basically saying that that eventually college football, it was I think it was when you started having this talk of like the 12 or 8 team playoff or whatever. Mm-hmm. That you were also going to have a convergence of the conferences into 2 or 3 like super conferences. And I think that's where we're going to be. I think it's inevitable that there's going to be 2. There's going to be 2, and you're going to have like maybe 64 total teams that are going to be represented in these 2 conferences. And that's going to be your I guess your Power 5 type teams that you see this year. That means, yes, some teams aren't going to be a part of that were Power 5 teams before. But yeah, that's the way I see it going. I see, I see it being 2 conferences, and I don't even know if it'll end up being 2 conferences. I don't know if it'll end up being just an East and a West like you have in the NBA, just have the NCAA split it down the middle and have an Eastern division and a Western division, and then your conferences would kind of be more so tiered football teams. You would have your top tier Power 5 schools or whatever would make up the top tier, and they would have their own national championship and then so on and so forth on down the line. It kind of stinks for those guys that are in the middle, but I really see it going to that. I think a lot of these teams just want to expand into more TV markets than they're in now.
Yep.
I mean, that's the name of the game,
So I completely agree. I think we're really going to end up with 2 power conferences, and I think you might even see some of the lesser teams get kicked out of conferences.
Yeah, I think so
as
too.
Crazy as that may sound, but I think they're going to look at some of these guys and go, Vanderbilt, bro, y'all ain't bringing no money in. You got to go. We got to make room for other folks. What's up, Alex MLD? Another one of our resident members, sir. Thank you for joining us, supporting the channel. Appreciate you being here. So I think you're going to end up with these 2 power conferences, and I don't think the Pac-12 is going to be one of them. I think the Pac-12 is pretty much going to disintegrate. It's going to go by the wayside, and it's just going to be gone. You're going to end up with either the Big 10 or Big 12 or whatever you want to call them. They may need to just rechange their name to however many teams you're going to end up with. At some point, the Big 10 had 12 teams and the Big 12 had 15 or something. I forget how all that works, but it's just kind of silly to have Big 10, Big 12. It doesn't even make sense. Pick a better name.
Yeah, I think the Big 12 will be the one that goes away. Big 10 will take the scraps of them in the Pac-12.
Yeah, and I would be okay with getting rid of a Mississippi State. I know they're a Southern team. I get that, but Mississippi State's not going to be in contention for anything. Vanderbilt's not going to be in contention for anything. Missouri's just happy to be here. They haven't done well recently. Auburn's dangerously close to falling into those same buckets. So there's a lot that needs to change if these conferences want to stick around and be competitive, or these teams want to stick around in these conferences and be competitive.
I wouldn't be mad at it turning to more of like a professional sports type model where you have bigger conferences, and the conferences are, or maybe like I said, an East and a West or whatever. If you want to call them conferences, if the SEC is the East and then the Big 10 is the West, or however you want to call it. But then inside of those super conferences, you have divisions, where teams play each other, kind of what the ACC is doing this year, where they're doing like pods, they're each team has like 3 or 4 other teams that they play every year. That's like kind of in their little pod, and then they rotate in the other teams every year, so that over the course of so many years, you're guaranteed to play everybody. Right. But you have your own little pod that you play. That's kind of a mock-up of a division system, like you see in baseball, where you're playing against your own division, and then at the end of the year, each division has their own representative who won, and then you play like a little mini playoff to determine who represents your conference.
Yeah.
So, and then you could have, just like in the NBA, you could have a team from the East and a team from the West come out, and that's who plays for your national championship. Yep. A team from conference A and a team from conference B ends up playing for the national championship, but they played their playoff within each other to determine who represents that conference, essentially. That would be a better way to do it rather than the way they're doing it now, with where the conference champions don't even matter. So
yeah. So this right here, that I'm pretty much done with now. This is a heart and hydration mix that I drink, and I also eat dark chocolate, like 72% or higher percent of dark chocolate for my heart. And this is iced coffee. So yeah, yes, I drink coffee at like 9:30. I can finish drinking my coffee and go lay down and go to sleep. It doesn't bother me anymore.
Yeah.
One of the things I did want to point out though is that if we end up going to these two super conferences, that's going to be interesting how they handle the playoff expanding. Because essentially you can end up with teams that will, at a certain point in their season, they're not going to play for the SEC championship, right? So they could essentially throw away a game, play guys that they don't want to, or pull the guys they don't want to worry about injuring, and just save that for the playoffs. What you got, baby girl? What is this?
It's a pink drink. You like that? I brought it home the other day.
Oh yeah, this has got strawberries in it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, drinking healthy. So no whiskey tonight. I gotta, lots of hydration. After I get done with this, I'm going out to get in my hot tub. That's it. I got a hot tub.
I did not know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I got an inflatable hot tub, and it's a 6-person hot tub, and it is literally one of the best things I've ever gotten.
Yeah, I've been thinking about getting one of those too.
You can just come up here and use mine.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, you want me to show you something cool? Check this out.
Yeah, what you got?
Let me get it together real quick.
So I'm really excited. Here we are. We're 6 weeks away from college football. You know, it seems like what you got? Oh, we got the Atlanta Braves replica ring.
That's the one from all the franchise World Series. So the Milwaukee, Boston, and the 2 in Atlanta.
That's super cool, dude.
Yeah, this was our.
That's super cool.
This was
look
our.
At that, look at that hubcap you got, man. That thing's huge, dude. Man, that's awesome, dude.
Yeah, this is our A-list gift for this year. Was they did replica rings of the 2021 World Series, but then they for the A-list. So I had 2 of those already, and then for the season ticket gift they gave out this year was they did replicas of all the World Series. So they gave it to us in this little.
That's pretty spotty, dude.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Very nice.
So now you just got to get you a Georgia replica ring.
Yeah, there you go.
So I will say, switch topics a little bit. One of the coolest things I have seen in sports, and probably a good 20 or 30 years, was Snitzer walking out there and giving Freddie Freeman a ring during the middle of that game.
Yeah, they did every time one of the guys that's not playing on the team this year, that's on another team, they came to Atlanta, they would do a little ceremony before the game and give them their ring. So it was cool. I've got to see a couple of them. I think I got to see Jorge Soler get his, and a couple other guys. I can't remember.
Still hate. I hate that we lost Freddie Freeman.
Yeah, I was going to be at the Freddie one, but man, I don't know. I don't like going to the Dodger games. It's super crowded and you can't hardly even move inside of there. So
yeah, I've never liked the Dodgers.
We sold our tickets to that game. So
I don't blame you. So somebody said, did I say inflatable? Yes, sir. You can get an inflatable hot tub. You don't have to have it hardwired. It's about a 20th of the cost. And when you get tired of it, you let the water out of it, then you let the air out of it, and then you can put it in storage, or you can sell it or give it away. If you go out and you get one of them hard, big hot tubs, water is just as hot as it is in mine and just as many bubbles, just going to cost you more. And then you got to have an electrician hardwire it in. It's a big pain in the neck. Mine, mine tears up. I put a little silicone on it, silicone sealant, good to go. Yes, sir. Alex, I was getting a hot tub in the next month. You are getting a hot tub? You should get you one, dude. I love mine. The older I get, the more decrepit I feel. That's why I'm drinking this, trying to hydrate and feel better and live to be 150. And get out there in that hot tub, that's nice because you go out there, you throw the top off of it, steam pouring out of it, hit the button, the bubbles come on, you sit in there for about 15 minutes and your back quits hurting and just long enough to run upstairs, take a shower, and climb into bed before you die. 110. It's 110, buddy. If you buy one of those industrial ones, you got to get like a full blown breaker and all of that. And in some places, you got to get a permit.
I don't really know why, but cold beer tastes better in them too. I haven't figured that out yet, but
yeah, it does. It does. A lot better. Your stuff ought to come up.
Yeah, man. I was thinking about seeing if you wanted to do something for the Oregon game.
Yeah, absolutely.
What time is that a night game? I'm sure it is, right?
3:30. It's 3:30 game.
3:30. Okay, yeah. Just enough time to throw something on the grill.
Yes, sir. Throw something on the grill, hang out, put the kids to bed, climb in the hot tub, drink some cold beer. Yes, sir. We can do it. But yeah, he cried too long, but it was good. I don't know what DJ was talking about. I must have missed something. Anyway, D4 Sports. What's up, buddy? Good old D4. Real quick for you guys that don't know, go check out. If you're still here, if you've made it this far in the stream, I really appreciate you making it this far. Hit a thumbs up, even if you're watching it not live, and go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you would. We got a merchandise store. You can go check out some Big Dog Brett stuff. You can also join the channel. You can support the channel. There's a thanks button now that has been recently activated. So if you want to just buy yours truly a cup of coffee or a Starbucks hydration drink, feel free to do so. Trying to grow the channel and make it better for everybody, and that's how we do it. You guys' support, your financial support really helps the channel and allows me to continue to do this and buy upgrades and just improve the whole show for you guys. So if you feel so inclined. But other than that, not a whole lot left for me. You got anything there, Keith?
No, I don't think so. I just saw the story a little bit ago about the guy from Oregon passing away. They're tight end. I don't know if you've seen that. Apparently, they got a tight end that fell and hit his head or something and passed away. So I'm not sure.
Oh, man.
I hadn't read the story. I just saw the headline a little bit before we went online. So I didn't read it. But I'm not really sure what the kid's name is. But somebody in the chat probably knows, probably seen it. But yeah, it looks like it was like some recreational activity, fell and hit his head and passed away. So stuff.
Yeah, I really hate to hear anything like that, man. That's terrible. Jay Shipes said to check PayPal. Man, I haven't checked PayPal in forever. I just tried to type in check PayPal. Idiot, boy. I'm an idiot.
It probably worked.
It probably would work. Let me check here. Oh, somebody has sent some money in here. Oh my goodness. I apologize, guys. Let me go over here.
He was rock climbing. Oh man, he was rock climbing, dude. I always am amazed at the people that do that kind of stuff, man.
It's $10 PayPal from Jay Shipes, man. I sure do appreciate that, buddy. Thank you, sir. I do appreciate it. I don't know maybe somebody else and stuff. This thing has a really like weird way of doing it. It doesn't show you just the updates. Like it has a weird thing. Hang on, let me check. So apparently, I haven't checked this thing in so long. He said, "You need help with that kitchen? Let me know, no charge. I have beer and food though." So how did Jay know I was working on? Oh, you should see as Keith, he saw the pictures of it. How did it look, Keith?
It looked good, man. I thought it was good.
Yeah, so I appreciate that, Jay. You need to come over and we need to do lunch sometime, buddy. I appreciate you, man. Diving off of a cliff. Was he rock climbing or diving off a cliff?
I don't know. I hadn't seen the story. I think the story hit a little bit earlier today, but
Cool Breeze, just to let you know, during the off season, I try to do a video, at least one video a week to kind of keep me active in the YouTube algorithm. As we get closer to football season, I do more and more. So I actually uploaded a video earlier today. My live streams are traditionally during football season on Wednesday nights. I'll do a live show on Wednesday nights from 9 to 10. And sometimes we'll go a little past 10. It just depends on what's going on. If the chat's into it, if it's a good conversation, we'll keep it going. If not, we'll shut it down. But most of the time, that's when you're going to see me. If you hit the bell and a notification, it will usually show up. This year, I'm going to try and start announcing stuff on Twitter because people tend to have a Twitter notification that pops up better than the YouTube notification. So I'm going to try and do that this year. But for those of you who don't know, the next couple of weeks I'm going to start going over the schedules, what I think of the schedules, who I think is going to play, where they're going to finish. I don't do all 180 teams. I do the teams I want to do. So you'll probably see a Georgia, you'll see an Alabama, you'll probably see a Clemson, you'll probably see an Ohio State. I might do an Oregon just because we're playing the first game of the season. I'll probably do a Texas A&M. But I mean, I traditionally only do a handful. Like I don't go crazy with it. And there's nothing wrong with doing as many as you want to do, but that's as many as I want to do. I do have a lot of stuff that kind of goes on behind the scenes. Like currently right now I have 11 people in my house right now. I don't know how we don't hear them, but there's 11 people in my house right now because we have my son's friends are over. Jay Shipe says either way he fell in this shallow water. So for those of you who don't know, I'm going to bring a little bit of awareness to this. Don't dive into a swimming pool or any body of water unless you know exactly how deep it is. Because me and Keith have a cousin who ended up with a neck and spinal injury from diving into a swimming pool that was too shallow. You remember that, Keith?
Who was that?
Josh.
Oh, yeah.
So he dove into a swimming pool, and it was really shallow, and he hit his head on the bottom, and he gave himself a neck and spinal injury. It could have been really, really bad. But he got fortunate. But still, don't dive into shallow water. Not a good idea. Not saying that this guy was doing that. It sounds like it was just a freak accident, but just be careful out there. Don't become a statistic if you can help it. Don't become a statistic. Like 86% of all people die in an accident around their house. That's why, because you're not careful. Well, that's pretty much all I got for tonight, man.
Yeah, that's it, man. All I got.
Yeah, Jay Shipe says, my brother tried to do that to me off the boat. Luckily, I had arms out. Oof. I'm glad you're okay, man.
Yeah, that's scary.
Scary. All right, guys. Well, let me do this for you real quick. We're going to, I'm going to share my screen, give you guys I'm going to start doing this just because you guys like to hang around in the chat and talk a little bit. So I'll let you guys do that. I'm going to go ahead and hit the go button here. Let's do that. That better. All right, Keith. If you just hang out around backstage here for a minute, dude, we'll get it going. So I'll give you guys a minute to talk. Oh, I almost screwed it up. Have a great day. God bless. Go Dogs.